Welcome to Teen Up, a podcast that digs deeper into the thoughts of teenagers' minds about the wonders of the world.
If you're new here, I am your host, Isabella.
And I'm Glenn. If you're not, welcome back.
Here's a quick disclaimer. If we made any mistakes, please email us and tell us. Thank you.
Last week, we talked about the influences of helicopter parents and how Gen Z might make great parents. Well, this week, we will talk about how to take care of kids in a different way called gentle parenting, and how that might lead to bring up a more respectful and empathetic person.
If you have never heard of gentle parenting is basically a parenting approach that encourages a partnership between you and your child to make choices based on an internal willingness instead of external pressures. So what this means here is that you are, like, if your kid wants to play in the playground, you're about to leave and you're telling your kid that, oh, we're going to leave in 5 minutes. And when it is time to leave and the kid throws in a tantrum, you are not using like, oh, we're going to go get ice cream afterwards. Like, that is not gentle parenting. You should be, giving them a warning like, oh, in 5 minutes, we're going to leave. So you're going to have to, go down the slides that you like and, make your time out of it. And when it's about time to go, you're going to say like, oh, it's time to go. Like, you want to go on like one last slide, and that you kind of have to like bargain with your kid and make sure that they are internally really willing to leave the playground. Like, you're not forcing them or, persuading them with a treat. That sounds like a dog, but yeah. But basically, yes. And throughout this whole process, you have to acknowledge a child's feeling and the motivation behind challenging behavior, as opposed to correcting the behavior itself. And the example for this would be kind of like when a kid is maybe, again, throwing a tantrum before eating because that kid is really hungry and he or she doesn't want to wash their hands, and you're forcing them to. But you should slow down and ask them and tell them like, oh, I know you're really hungry, but in order to get food, we have to, get your hands washed, or else you're gonna you might get sick or something. And you have to correct this behavior and saying that throwing a tantrum is not the correct way to deal with this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And basically, the three main things that you have to have while doing this gentle parenting thing is empathy, understanding, and respect. And we will go further into it later. And gentle parenting sends messages that not only set boundaries, but leave a long-term impact, because we all know that families is what really forms a kid's, future life and personality traits and everything like that. So gentle parenting could really leave a long-term impact on a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout this whole gentle parenting technique, children are told that they have a partner in their parents, meaning that they are not fighting their parents. Their parents are not someone that they should oppose. They work together in this relationship. They work together in order to make things more, in order to make communications flow and everything like that. What their parents are doing for them is to keep them safe and encourage them to learn in every situation.
It sounds like gentle parenting is just very free.
Free? What do you mean?
Like, the parents give their children a lot of freedom, but also use like a more conversation way to parent them.
I think gentle parenting is kind of like you're trying to talk to a kid like an adult. Like, you're sorting through their emotions slowly and trying to, just talk to them like an adult, but they're not really an adult yet, but you're sort of treating them like one. And throughout this whole process, the one main thing that I see on social media and all parents that do gentle parenting say that doing this really takes a lot of patience.
I would definitely agree. Because like
Yeah.
when we're doing, say, volunteer works, right? If we want to be like very gentle, like, hey, I think you should do your homework right now. And that kid is throwing a tantrum. And I would be like, do you think you should do your homework right now? And then that kid would like, no, I don't think so. And I'm going to go play, you know? Like, you need a lot of patience to be able to do that. But in another way, I feel like, just like a very extreme side of gentle parenting, I would say, maybe, is not to care. Maybe not care, but like let them be for a period of time. Like, you need to be very, very patient for that.
For sure.
But
for sure.
just let them be for a while. Say if they're not gonna do their homework, don't. And they're gonna have the consequences. Because I think I talk about this all the time, but I think it's very important for people to learn about consequences in a way that a lot of people don't right now, because especially for us or like in Taiwan, how everyone's parents like tell them to do this and that, and they just tell them what's going to happen if they don't do it, or
Yeah.
they just, you know, force them to do it, and they're not going to learn about consequences. And you know, they would do something crazy like throw a banana down a building, and they wouldn't get any consequences. Their punishment is like not matched to what they do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to talk about consequences like in a more realistic way. Say if you hit someone, you're going to clean it up yourself. And say if you don't study for something, you're going to fail your test. You're going to go to a bad college. You're going to have no job. Not saying that if you don't go to good college, you're not going to get a job. But just like, you know, if you don't do your own work, you're going to have bad consequences most of the time. I mean, you could get out of it if you're lucky, but people always do that. But it's not like the general idea. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like, you know, it could be a way that gentle parenting is trying to incorporate, like letting their kids learn about consequences, but not going too far as to like giving them total freedom. And when they're 30, they're homeless and they know nothing.
Yeah, I completely get what you mean.
Such an extreme example, though.
So what I've seen on social media, like I follow this mother with 2 kids on TikTok, and one thing that about consequences, I remember one video of her kid drawing, like using crayons, and drew on the wall. And I remember her saying that most parents would tell their kid, you know, to go on a timeout and stand in a corner and, you know, learn that this is not a behavior that is good. But instead, for her, she would tell her child that drawing on the wall is not okay, and there are papers that he could draw on, and he could ask his mother for that. And she would give him a wipe and say, like, now you have to clean up with me, like clean up the crayons off the wall with me. And I think that is a correct consequence for, you know, this situation, instead of having a timeout. And that TikToker, like that mother, really makes she makes a lot of videos on how to create right consequences for different behaviors. And I think that is super important, because what kids do when they're young is that they really just, you know, make things messy. So their consequences would mostly be really related to like cleaning and getting things organized, instead of having a timeout.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Like having patience in all this is really truly important, because like for me personally, if I had a kid, and I would probably just like, if the kid throws a tantrum, I'm probably gonna throw a tantrum. Like I don't know if I would be able to, you know, stay calm and tell them to and ask them like why they're feeling this way and stuff like that. But yes, patience is super important.
Yeah.
Okay, so gentle parenting is very similar to Montessori Method. So Montessori Method is a method developed by Dr. Maria Montessori in the early 1900s, and it is a specific child-centered method of education that involves child-led activities. And it is mostly talking about like within the classrooms and teachers instead of using it as like parents and kids. But they are they are similar in a lot of ways. Like they both encourage kids to take responsibility for themselves. Like for gentle parenting, they would guide your child towards independence to an emotional level. And Montessori method pretty much does the same and ask them to be responsible for the things that they're doing and for their own actions.
Yeah, so the responsibility that I was talking about.
Yeah, basically. Like, and this also follows up to like the consequences thing. Like, you have to understand, you have to take responsibility of your own actions.
Wait, actually, I went to a kindergarten that's like based on the Montessori idea.
What do you mean?
I don't know, it's like their branding or whatever. So all we do all day is like there are a lot of different toys. I wouldn't necessarily say toys, like games, but they're like a task or they're something that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not like toys, but they're like toys that can make you learn something. Say, I remember like there are maps.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just take those maps and then we can draw a earth. And so it's somewhat like there are different pieces, like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to put together and make it earth, right? A map for the globe.
Oh, so basically they're kind of like teaching you like problem solving kind of as well.
And geography, of course.
Uh-huh.
And then each piece is like a continent. So I have Asia, I have like Australia. And then I can like put it onto another piece of paper and try to outline it and draw it into like my own map. So it would like make me learn how to like do things better with my hands. And then we also learn how to like cook in a way, how to like make eggs.
Interesting.
Oh, and another thing, I think we need to like clean the environment ourselves. I do not like remember completely, but I think that's like the case. So it's just like I don't remember completely though. Do we have like structured class? I think we didn't, but we have like English class. I remember very clearly we had English class.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
What do you mean?
Like you have to learn a language at a very small age in order to get it really good.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that
I definitely agree, and there are like research that supports this idea, I think.
I mean, you came out fine, so I guess yeah. Okay, anyways. So would you say that Montessori method made you a better person?
I would know. There's like no comparison. See, I think that's the most interesting thing about parenting. It's that if you do something successful one day, you wouldn't be able to recreate it because there are a lot of different
factors.
Yeah, a lot of different factors. And even if you're like twins, you wouldn't necessarily know what's the factor that influences this. It could be one of the classmates in their kindergarten that played with them. It could be a childhood trauma. There are just so many different factors that we are unable to say like which method is the best or which method caused what. You can say like this method could potentially teach kid responsibility. This method could potentially cause kid to be, irresponsible. But we do not know for sure. It could be from the parents. It could be from an aunt,
Yeah.
There are just so many factors. And I think that's what makes human or like parenting or education so interesting because there are so many factors involved in it. And it should be looked at holistically, Everything should be considered.
I think like right now you can't say that this kindergarten you went to made you like who you are. I mean, it definitely like shaped you somehow, but there are a lot more things out there that made you who you are today.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't say for sure. Like, even like a psychologist looking at you can't say for sure what happened to you and what made you exactly, like, what trait was influenced by what incident. Like,
Definitely.
that is not, yeah. Um, so yes, like you said, Montessori method really helps you with responsibility.
Yeah, I would say it did.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Uh, and how about, did you feel like you were able to manage your feelings through this method?
Why does it feel like I'm being interviewed right now?
I want to know. Honestly, I really want to know.
Um, I don't know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I
Okay.
would remember if someone cried, or like if I cried in kindergarten, they would
Mm-hmm.
try to like guide you instead of just giving you a punishment. Does that
Mm-hmm.
count?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I guess so. I guess so. I mean, it's a lot better to guide you through your feelings instead of, getting punished. So also gentle parenting takes that type of way. Like, so for example, when a kid is sad, again, sad about leaving the playground, you would slow down and tell them like, "Oh, I know like you're feeling sad and that is a strong feeling. Um, but you had your chance to like go down the last slide or anything, and we're still able to come back next time," and sort of kind of like that, and guide
Mm-hmm.
them to think more positively instead of a negative feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's important that parents don't eliminate a child's negative feeling, because if they don't do that, children would feel more accepted and learn to recognize like the full spectrum of emotions as natural. Like, some kids, especially I would say males, would be expected to not cry because that is not an emotion a male is supposed to have. And that is rooted ever since they were small. Like, their father would tell them like, "Oh, boys don't cry." But it's important that kids are able to recognize all types of emotions.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm not sure if it's related, but I feel like this somehow caused like a kind of toxic masculinity in our society. I
Mhm.
think it's related,
Mhm.
but I'm not like completely
Yeah.
sure. Like some people around us, they would be saying like how men should be like this or that, and they should be
Mhm.
strong, and it's just
Mhm.
wrong
Oh, that rhymed. Yeah.
because there shouldn't be a way how a gender should act. Oh my god, so Gen Z, but
I know. Exactly.
but I'm just saying like we should be able to accept people as who they are.
Mhm.
I'm just saying like how some people are so toxically masculine that they want to prove that they're, you know, up to the standard for a guy or a girl, that they overdo it
Mhm.
and they just try to bury their own identity so much that it becomes a burden to them, and it makes them a person that is very hard to deal with in a way, or like it makes them
Mhm.
very hard to be around.
Yes, this really has to be rooted back to how their parents brought them up. And yeah, the fact about like boys shouldn't cry is for sure, I think it's for sure a part of toxic masculinity, because they would have to like tough everything through. Like, they could just, hide their negative emotions and stuff like that, which I think should not be the case.
And just a side note, there's a movie called The Tree of Life. I'm sorry, I personally don't like this movie, but this movie is about but I can see a lot of like this toxic masculinity in this movie, and I think it captures it very well.
Okay, so a movie recommendation.
Not necessarily recommended though. Anyways, it's just an interesting movie.
Okay. And another part of gentle parenting is that kids learn to manage uh, emotions in a peaceful and nurturing environment, which I think this also relates to like the great patience that parents have. And the kids are able to, build more resilience against emotions. because a lot of kids, when they don't have time and space to properly process what their emotion is in the future, like when they grow up, when they have the same emotion, they still wouldn't be able to process what that is. Like for me, I feel like as I grow up, I'm more able to describe what I'm going through, like what I'm thinking and what I am experiencing emotionally. And if you're able to, have that time and environment to do that when you were younger, when you get older, you're able to just identify them instead of still figuring out what you're trying to feel. Do you get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, and once again, adults here, even in this Montessori method, they're guides and not someone that you should be afraid of, or not someone that you shouldn't be able to communicate with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they both also take keen observation. Like you would have to know what interests kids and students, and you have to be able to pay close attention to how your kids react to problems.
Yeah, I feel like it's an interesting aspect of like parenting is that even though it seems like you're not doing anything, but you're actually doing more just by watching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And noticing what your kids need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after the break, we're going to talk more deeply about what gentle parenting is.
Welcome back. Now we're gonna get more into gentle parenting.
So, as we've mentioned before, that great part of gentle parenting is empathy, understanding, and respect. And now we're gonna get deeper into that. So, so empathy is basically you have to make a habit of pausing to empathize with your child, and you have to understand what your child's going through, and you have to remember to ask questions in order to know what they're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't just assume what your child is feeling without asking.
Right.
And this shows kids that treating other people should have care and compassion. And also, empathy is a powerful reminder to slow down and engage with what your kid is dealing with. And very much like what I said earlier, it's important to, ask them like, oh, what are you feeling? And they would say like maybe sad, and you could say like, oh yes, this is a strong emotion, and I understand that you're probably sad because of something. And yeah, just communicate with your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the second aspect is understanding. The understanding piece of gentle parenting comes down to making a practice of remembering that a child is a child. Sometimes parents forget that a child is a child.
Yeah.
And this last aspect is respect. You have to show your kid that respect is a choice, and that you respect what they're feeling, and you respect their space and give them the freedom to feel what they're feeling. And this also teaches your child that respecting people is very important, and they would be able to follow your footsteps and respect other people in the future too.
Mm-hmm.
And well, lastly, here are just like some like reminders and stuff that people who does gentle parenting would do. So the first one is basically to comment on the action and not the person. I think this is super important, and a lot of parents lack this thing. Like instead of saying you are a total mess, like when the kid maybe spilled the soup and like you're making a total mess, and that is focusing in on that kid being a fault, while it is the action that is the fault, right? You should be saying, oh, it was not okay to spill the soup or something like that, instead of saying like you're wrong for spilling the soup. Yeah. Like those little words do make a difference, and it's really important that you focus on those, or else you're going to have the imprint on that kid of making the kid think that he or she is just a fault at first. Okay. And the second main thing is model all kinds of kindness. Be sure, like, your kid watches you and learns everything from you. So you have to be able to be kind to your kid, even though at times it might be very difficult. But they would do whatever you do. And the third one is swap commands for an invitation to work together. I think this is a super important thing, like not just for parents, just for communicating, like in any types of way. Everyone should understand that instead of commands, you should make it an invitation to work together. Do you get what this one means?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's just saying that instead of telling your kid, like, go clean up your room, you should say, like, why don't we clean up your room together? Like, would you want to join me in cleaning up your room or something like that? That would make them more willing to do it because you put a question mark at the end instead of telling them to do. Nobody likes to be told what to do. So an invitation would be a better choice of word. And the last one is to encourage the positive action. Okay, so basically is when maybe you're going to a museum and instead of telling your kid to not touch an artifact, you should encourage the positive action and say that, oh, this is only for looking. Or if their kid really wants to touch it, you could say, oh, let's use gentle hands on this.
What?
And
you're not supposed to touch it.
I mean, okay, maybe like on other things, you know.
Okay.
But like kind of like that. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like instead of pointing out the negative stuff, say that you could do what?
Yeah. It's like you couldn't use flash, but instead you can say you can take without flash. It's like you can take a photo without flash.
Yeah. And that would make it a lot better because you're talking positively instead of, putting a boundary in front of your kid and making them feel like you are stopping them from doing what they're doing. Yeah. So overall, gentle parenting is still a very difficult thing to do because taking care of a child takes a whole village, right? And it's okay throughout the whole process to still make mistakes of, losing control of your own emotions. Like maybe you just lost your patience. It is an okay thing to do because research has said that you only have to get it about 40 to 50% right for gentle parenting, and the rest is kind of like rupture and repair. So when you like lost the connection with your kid and you got mad at her or him and your kid is also mad at you, it's okay. Like you could still take deep breaths and understand the situation and what's going on in your head and sit down with your kid and explain what just happened and be like, oh, I shouldn't have like rushed you to do something, like you're taking your time, and just find the connection back again and things would be good.
Next week, we're going to have a special guest to talk about parenting with us.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
We will upload a new episode every Thursday.
Remember to like, follow, and share our podcasts with your friends and family. You could also share your idea and thoughts with us on our Instagram at teenup.podcast.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel.
Thank you and bye.